What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the remote front office. Today we're going to be doing a way too early. My thoughts on what the rankings will be for this upcoming season as far as standings go. For the Eastern Conference. If you guys are new here, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. We are still kind of in the dead of the off season now that summer league's over, so we are still at once a week, and unfortunately we didn't record last week because I was sick. But we are back in the swing of things. We are back to making content and we are one day closer to preseason, which means we're one day closer to the NBA season, right? So today I wanted to mix things up. Normally I try and wait till the end of the offseason for these, but I feel like especially for the East, basically every move that can be made has been made, right? The Sixers are done with their offseason. Really, the only thing that's left is do the Bulls completely tear down, that sort of thing, right? And then obviously a couple of role guys are still in Brooklyn, stuff like that. But so what we're gonna do is I have the teams ranked 1 through 15 in my opinion. Again, I feel like this could change at any moment. Just it was kind of how I felt today as far as where I saw teams. And then I also will end up breaking. So what I'll initially do is I have a bracket for what I labeled this group as, and then I will have the ranking for where they are in the standings, right? So this first group is my quote unquote contenders group. I feel like they will at least one, if not two, of these teams will be in the Eastern Conference Finals and will be one series away from the NBA Finals, right? So the team at the top is going to be the Boston Celtics. I still think, even with Porzingis missing a significant amount of time, the rest of this team is still young enough and fairly healthy to where I still think they are the one seed in the East. They were the one seed in the East by about 14 games last year. So I don't think it's a crazy ask to assume that even without Porzingis, with the Al Horford minutes, with just odds and ends guys here and there, they can still, especially against the bottom half of this Eastern Conference, and the fact that you don't play the West, right? So when we get to the West in the next video, we will have the issue of they all play each other, so it's going to kill records in some spots, right? It'll kind of balance everybody out. Whereas the East, you're feeding on these teams that are very clearly going for Cooper Flag, and you play them multiple times, right? So I think that'll be a big advantage to Ball State. Next team in this tier is the New York Knicks. I understand that their center rotation is going to be interesting, but there's a couple of things, right? Mikal Bridges, knock on wood, is a relatively healthy player. Jalen Brunson's a relatively healthy player. And then Julius Randle, for the most part, minus major injuries, right? For the most part, is a relatively healthy player. OG Anunoby, I'm expecting probably about 40 to 50 games from. Same with Mitchell Robinson, right? I'm expecting about half to 3/4 of the season from those guys. But all in all, I think their rotation's solid. I feel like they made good picks on draft night. Their depth isn't too bad in most positions other than center. But I feel like as far as wing, guards, etc., I still trust their team to be relatively healthy throughout the regular season. And they also did finish the second seed last year. Next team I have, I flipped back and forth today between these two teams. I ended up settling for the Bucks at 3 and the Sixers at 4. So I think the reason for this is I trust the Milwaukee superstars to be more healthy, right? Giannis typically is a relatively healthy guy. Now that Dame's had a full offseason to kind of train and get into game shape, I trust Dame to be back for a majority of the regular season. I understand Middleton had his double ankle surgery. Brook Lopez is a year older, etc. But I just think the addition of Gary Trent Jr., Taurean Prince, those sort of guys, I think that gets you through a regular season when you have a guy like Giannis, right? You're providing more spacing for him. Maybe you get some of these younger guys more playing time. And I just think all in all, it makes more sense for Milwaukee, right? Philly, I was the 4 seed very easily. Again, could switch with Milwaukee. I just think that the 76ers, now that they have Paul George, now that they've built this team, they're going to try and pace Embiid more, right? They're going to care less about his All NBA, his MVP qualifications, right? They're going to be more concerned with, is he healthy come April? Is he healthy come May, right? So I think he plays somewhere around 50 to 60 games. Obviously, Tyrese Maxey, I expect a lot of games from Paul George, probably around 60 games, maybe 65. But I think, again, they're going to want those guys ready for April and May, right? So you may see them against like the Nets, the Wizards, the Blazers, those sort of teams, right? Those will be the teams that those guys get sat against, right? It's your quote unquote rest day or whatever you want to phrase it as. This next group I am calling the dark horse or the anything is possible tier. These are guys that either A, made a deep playoff run last year, or B, showed promise and upside, and I think they can build off of that momentum, right? So the next team I have up is the Cleveland Cavaliers. I think you secured Donovan Mitchell. He is now back for at least a minimum of this year, right? We'll see kind of how this year goes and stuff. But I think that team, even if they are not a great fit playoff wise, I think just they had really bad injury luck last year, which for some odd reason benefited them as far as their win streaks. But I think that just in general, the talent, I expect Garland to be better. I expect Mobley to be better with another year under his belt. And then obviously you have Donovan Mitchell, you have Jared Allen, and a new coach. I just think that all of those forces combined, I think this team is a relatively good regular season team. Obviously, we'll see come playoff time. The next team I have up here is the Magic. I do think the addition of KCP makes a difference. However, them not adding a primary ball handler does concern me a little bit. So that is why I still think they're in this range, despite how good of a year they had last year. I think that you're still asking a lot out of Paulo. You're asking a lot out of Franz. You're asking a lot out of Jalen Suggs. I think it's a good move, and I think maybe if there's a bigger splash that nobody sees coming, then this team easily could catapult possibly above the Cavs or possibly even higher, right? But as of right now, I think this is kind of where they're at. Again, health aside, if one of these top teams falls down due to health, I would expect the Magic to be one of the teams that comes up. Next team in this tier is the Indiana Pacers. Indiana Pacers were hard to rank just because Pascal Siakam was a midseason acquisition, so it was hard to kind of figure out where they actually should have finished in the standings last year. Plus, Halliburton's injuries last year made it really hard to truly figure out exactly where they were on pace to finish, right? But I think they built off of that. Their guys are another year older. The one thing I will say is there wasn't really any big additions for this team other than obviously re-signed Pascal Siakam. But Miles Turner's another year older. You don't have Buddy Hield shooting to help out this team. I expect Nembhard to take a leap, but I think all in all, you're asking a lot out of the same guys to get the same success you had last year, right? The next team I'm going to call, or the next group I'm going to call the bubble. This is teams that are probably the play-in teams more than likely. Maybe there's a little variance here and there. But the first team is going to be the Atlanta Hawks. I think we're going to go with the less is more theory for this team. Also, somebody just kind of, this is where you start to get to the slots of somebody's got to finish here in the East. And I think for Atlanta, you lose DeJounte Murray, you do gain Dyson Daniels, you do gain Larry Nance. The one concern I would have if I'm a Hawks fan is you do still have Clint Capella, you do still have Onyeka Okongwu, you have Alex Sarr now, and now you have Larry Nance. And judging by just kind of what I've heard from various podcasts and stuff, it seems like a lot of coaches really like Larry Nance's game. I'm a big fan of Larry Nance's game. I just think that on the list of guys you have right now, he's not a priority, right? But I do think that as the season goes on, I think Quinn Snyder's going to start to trust Larry Nance more, and then that's where we're going to have the issue of people are going to start asking, well, why is Clint Capella getting DNPs? Why is Onyeka Okongwu getting maybe an extended injury timeout that he wasn't supposed to? Those sort of things, right? But I think just with all the wings that you have here, I think that the Atlanta Hawks are poised for a good run, right? You have three centers, so you have. I don't think Capella starts anymore. Just kind of off the downfall of last year, I would expect Okongwu to start. I just like his versatility a little bit more. Capella off the bench, I think, is a really good fit. And then you have Larry Nance for when Capella gets hurt or Okongwu gets hurt. And then you do have Ricochet as your four off the bench. I said Alex Sarr earlier. I got him confused. Ricochet will be, I'm assuming, the backup four, probably next to, I would hope DeAndre Hunter is probably on their bench for them. I obviously don't want Jalen Johnson to start, but they do have a lot of wings. The guard, backup point guard's kind of still a mystery to me. But I do think, again, regular season wise, Trae Young will get you stats, which will lead to wins against lesser competition. The next team I have is the Heat. I think the Heat should regress this offseason, right? They made good draft picks, but there wasn't really any major moves made signing wise. You lost the Martin brother to Philly for literally nothing. You didn't really address anything as far as just this roster in general. So again, I'm not going to count out the Heat because it is the Heat. I trust Spoelstra, I trust Bam, Jimmy, and those guys. Again, Jimmy's probably only going to play a half a season. So I think all in all, that puts Miami in the play-in situation. The next team I have in this group, honestly, probably could have gone in the group below them. Um, actually, it doesn't go in the group below them. So those are the 2 teams in bubble. There's 4 teams in what the next tier is. The next tier is going to be called the variance tier, right? The reason for that is I think these teams could make a couple of moves and completely bottom out. Or I think these teams could perform above expectations and end up in a real play-in race with the Hawks or with the Heat, right? So the first team in that group is going to be the Raptors. I expect Bruce Brown to be moved at some point. The question is it for more of a picks-based package or is it a players-based package? Um, but as far as the rest of the team, I think it's quality guys, right? It's not superstars. It's not top end guys. We hope Scotty Barnes becomes that for them. But I don't think it's anybody that's a ceiling raiser per se, right? It's a bunch of guys that are floor raisers. So I think this is about right for them, especially if the teams below them either underperform or just flat out have a fire sale and completely embrace the tank, right? I think this is about where they'll be. This spot or the next spot is really where I see them at. The next team in this tier is the Charlotte Hornets. Most people may be wondering why I have Charlotte so high. They've jumped so many people. There's a couple of reasons. Charlotte, when LaMelo was relatively healthy, I believe it was 3 years ago, they were a 43-win team. 43-win team in the eyes of the East is a play-in team, possibly a playoff team, right? I think now that Miles Bridges had a year to, uh, again, on the court, get back to playing, right? Um, I think that's a positive for him. I think another year for Brandon Miller. Hopefully, again, this is a lot banking on LaMelo's healthy because you don't have the Gordon Hayward bailout. You had that a couple of years ago, where LaMelo was still missing a little time, but not nearly as much as he missed the last couple of years. And another year for Mark Williams. Like, just another year for these young guys. They made okay picks. They took some swings. But I think all in all, just another year for those guys. And then again, if LaMelo's healthy, I think this is a right around a 40-win team, right? The next team, kind of out of just how it works, the Chicago Bulls are going to be the next team on this list. I don't really see the Bulls dropping any lower than this. I think if they keep LaVine and Vooch the whole year, it is a real possibility they are a spot or 2 higher than this. You did lose DeMar for basically nothing. We're not going to talk about that trade again. I've given my opinions. But I think all in all, that the Bulls, again, if Lonzo's 80% of what he is, if LaVine's back for a majority of the year, if you have Vooch for a majority of the year, that's going to win you unnecessary games. Not as a not front office, but as a fan base, we don't want you to win those games, right? We want to be in the Cooper Flag sweepstakes. The trick is the last couple of years, though, it hasn't been a team that's been at the very bottom, right? It hasn't been a team like Detroit that's won the lottery the last couple of years. It's been a team that's been at like 9 to 10, right? Granted, I think the Bulls will be at probably 5, would be my guess, maybe 6. Because obviously I think there's 3 teams in the East that's for sure below them. And then I think there is at least 1 team in the West. I don't really see a second team, depending on how the Bulls play, obviously. But I think all those combined, and then especially if you don't get a healthy Lonzo here, if he really is just done, right? If LaVine gets traded right as we get into camp, if Vooch gets traded relatively quick because New Orleans realizes that the no center experiment's not going to work, those sort of things, right? That can really quickly tear down this team, and then we're done, and we are in this bottom race, bottom bracket here. The next team that's in this group, I'm giving them the benefit of the doubt. They've been in the bottom of the East for a couple of years now. I'm giving them the benefit of the doubt, though, because I think they made a lot of good, smart veteran acquisitions, right? They finally addressed shooting. I'm curious to see how the lineup plays with their new coaching staff, but I think the Detroit Pistons are not in that bottom tier anymore, right? Another year of Cade, you get a year of Tobias Harris, who Tobias Harris isn't, again, a great player, but at bare minimum, he's a floor raiser, right? Another year of Jalen Duren. All these things combined, I think this puts you in at least this next group, right? You're not in the very bottom, but you're definitely not competing for a play-in spot, I don't think. Again, with the variance, maybe they're up to the 11th seed. I just don't see how you go from being one of the bottom 2 teams in this conference for the last couple of years all the way up to a play-in spot quite yet, right? I don't think that's this year. I think that's the year after, I think is where we get to that point. the final year of Tobias Harris, those sort of things. I think that is when you get to the point of you're actually in the play-in, and we're talking about you as a play-in team, right? The bottom two teams, we are going to label these the Cooper Flag or bust teams, right? They've made their intentions pretty clear. They are going for Cooper Flag, right? That is priority 1, 2, and 3 on this roster. The first team is going to be the Washington Wizards. Would not be surprised if we see a Kyle Kuzma trade here soon. With trading Denny Avdia, they made it abundantly clear they are moving towards the next couple of years, right? They have decided that we are still pretty early in this rebuild. Let's swing for the fences 1 or 2 times, and then we'll worry about going and properly constructing the team, right? So I wouldn't be surprised if you see them taking on bad salary with using Richaun Holmes' money. Kyle Kuzma will be dealt for probably a couple of assets. It would not surprise me. They did not bring back Tyus Jones, which was another kind of sign as he signed with Phoenix that this was coming. But again, I think this team is Cooper Flag or bust. And the team that is the ultimate Cooper Flag or bust team is the Brooklyn Nets, right? You trade Mikal Bridges for a bunch of picks. You still have a couple of role guys that I wouldn't be surprised if they are conveniently on other teams, either A, at the trade deadline or possibly sooner. Dorian Finney-Smith, for example, manageable contract, good 3-and-D player, good role player. I think he will be on another team, possibly Nicholas Claxton, depending on how much you want to bottom out, different things like that, right? So that is going to be the Eastern Conference. If you guys have any differing opinions on standings, or if you guys think teams should be in different brackets, make sure to comment it down below. And I will catch you guys in the next one. Peace.